My name is Rose Gerber. I want to thank you for joining us today for our final advocacy chat of the year, where we're going to be discussing some of our key highlights that we've achieved through COA's Patient Advocacy Network. Drew, can you please advance the slide? And for those of you who wonder who Drew is, he is our amazing Senior Communications Manager who does some great work behind the scenes. Now, for those of you who are looking at the slides and have been regular participants on our CPAN Advocacy Chats, some of the information on this slide might look familiar. In July of this year, one of our special guests was Nick Ferreros, who is the Managing Director for COA. And at that time, the information that you see on the screen were highlights that Nick had shared about where COA was in the middle of the year. And you could see, even in July, COA was accomplishing some incredible things. We had, at that point, testified before Congress 4 times. Now I increased that number to 5 times because we've been back in front of Congress, and those numbers might be even higher. You can see the impressive audiences that our COA leadership stood in front of: Senate Finance, Senate Commerce, House Energy and Commerce, House Oversight Committee. And again, a special shout out to Dr. Atkins and Dr. Pat, incredible leaders right there, practicing medical oncologists. We had just had our major Hill Day, which was our first live Hill Day since 2020. And of course, if we're talking anything about COA, we're always going to be talking about PBMs. And that was the focus of our visits on Capitol Hill. And we also talked about the TACT Act. You can see the hot topics, if we can go back one, that Nick had identified and COA as an organization identified, were the issues surrounding drug shortages, the IRA, which is the Inflation Reduction Act, the drug delivery issues going on with the Stark Law violation, 340B, pharmacy benefit managers again, EOM, which is the Enhancing Oncology Care Model, and more. And of course, our engagement at the state level. Next slide, please. Because of the time frame of this advocacy chat, we can't possibly go into all of those updates related to COA, but COA, our communications team, does a fantastic job of keeping all of us informed through the COA news bulletins, as well as the CPAN news bulletins, and also having always current and updated information on our website. So what you see in front of you on this slide is basically what we call the headlines, the very interesting words about what we've been working on. So you can see, for example, the new bill fixes the Stark Law, where we were asking for support on the HR Bill 5526. You can, we're going to always have these slides accessible for you. And if you look at the very bottom of the slide, I'm showing you where to go to learn more about where we were at the time when these press releases or news announcements were made. And then when you explore our website, you can get even more information on to where we are now. So this particular information can be found on the news update section, specifically COA newsletters. Next slide, please. Now we're going to go on to, can we go back one? So I feel like we might have missed a slide. Can we go back one? Oh, okay, excuse me. Yes. Now this was a second slide. This is, again, some of the really big achievements for COA this year. For all of you that were part of our conference in April, it was very exciting to celebrate 20 years of COA's existence. A lot of these videos are now on COA's YouTube page. We had our 14th annual Pair Exchange Summit. NCTA, the National Cancer Treatment Alliance, announced 43 oncology practices as new members, and again, on and on. So you can find this information in our press release section. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So now we're going to focus on CPAN. What is CPAN's organizational focus? Most of you in the audience will be able to answer this question. CPAN has a laser focus, and our focus is educating patients and advocates about the value of community oncology. That's the foundation. But once we teach that foundation, we teach them about many, many other topics, from biosimilars to oral drugs and many, many more. The photo on the right is representative of many of the in-person events that we have done. This is a picture that was taken at an event that we did at Coastal Cancer Care in South Carolina earlier this year. These are advocates, patients, clinicians that showed up that evening to learn about COA and to learn about CPAN and issues that matter to them. I want to draw your attention to the quotes on the left. I'm very honored to have new advocates that I'm meeting all the time, but also advocates that have been longtime CPAN advocates. The first quote, "Inspired to advocate. CPAN gave me the voice I needed to stand up for patients, survivors, and the incredible community oncology professionals who were by my side throughout my cancer journey. That quote is from Betty App, a cancer survivor from Georgia, who's been active with CPAN since 2013. The next quote, taking control of cancer care. This is a quote from Armando Lastra, who is from New York, and in addition to being a cancer survivor, is also a nurse. His quote, I almost lost access to the cancer treatment my doctor knew was right for me, but thanks to CPAN, I knew exactly what to do. And I wanted to start off with these patient voices because we do talk a lot about patient voices. And this is a reminder that CPAN is actually real live patients all the time. Next slide, please. Okay, this is a very broad overview since this is basically a highlights reel of what we've done with CPAN this year. Again, we're providing advocacy, education, and engagement opportunities in multiple ways. We're meeting and educating patients and survivors at their site of care. Now, remember, site of care is something that we talk a lot about within COA. There's different sites of care. And when we use that verbiage, it's meaning that we are at the community oncology practices where the majority of cancer patients are treated. We've had over 14 practice-based live events this year, including lunch and learns, which are led by our CPAN chapter advocacy leaders, who you're going to meet too in just a few minutes. And we've also had a variety of community events and, of course, new chapter launches. Our advocates and leaders have been featured in multiple media publications, both internally and externally, featured on a website, social media, and in COA's recent campaign, The Faces of Community Oncology. Our CPAN advocates participate in a variety of local and national advocacy events, including the State of Community Oncology event, which is one of COA's signature events that kicks off our year at the National Press Club. Our COA conference in April, we had an advocacy leadership workshop, COA Hill Day, which we just talked about, the legislative leadership program, which James, my colleague, and Nick head up, and our advocates have also contributed their insight to various patient advisory boards. In terms of CPAN leadership, that's myself and our medical co-chairs, Dr. Emily Talukian and Dr. Harsha Baez. We have also spoken at multiple industry events this year. And we also have a very robust corporate member program, or industry members, whatever your choice of words is. And I also work directly with many of their advocacy VPs and heads on any advocacy initiatives where we might be able to collaborate or have similar goals. And I also do the same with several of our external advocacy organizations. Next slide, please. And I just mentioned our leadership team, and there you can see Dr. Emily Talukian from Coastal Cancer Center and Dr. Harsha Baez. Again, not only are they medical co-chairs, they're seeing patients all day long, every day of the week. So thank you, Dr. Talukian and Dr. Baez. Next slide, please. Okay, speaking of leadership, we do try to be role models for all of our nurse leaders and all of the individual advocates. And again, this is just a sampling. I'll have a lot more details to you when I release the final CPAN report in January. We, again, have partnered with Cure Magazine, Live and Kicking. Our doctors have done podcasts, have participated in roundtables in Washington, D.C., have visited with Representative Buddy Carter in Georgia. Dr. Talukian was on a very important panel on women leaders in oncology. I had the opportunity to speak with Cornell University and at the WC Patient Forum, and that is just a snapshot. Next slide, please. Okay, meeting patients where they are. So excited to be back at live events. Believe me, I miss them, and so do all of our advocates. We launched our first live chapter since 2020 at Hope Cancer Care of Nevada, and this was our first chapter launch on the West Coast. I want to credit our CPAN chapter leader, Sunshine Markall, who is also a cancer survivor, two-time cancer survivor, and Becky Collette, our CPAN chapter leader, and of course, Dr. Mehdi, who I worked very closely with to do this chapter launch. The photo that you see on the right is not even everybody in the room. It was an incredible evening. And something that I couldn't possibly capture in a photo is the patient stories that occurred during these events. So if you ever see a CPAN chapter launch and you want to come, just let us know and we can see if we can get you invited, because these are very, very special moments. Next slide, please. We also did a chapter launch in South Carolina at Coastal Cancer Care. And again, this was a really incredible event. You see Dr. Talukian right there in the middle in the green dress, leadership by example, and Christina Blackburn, another one of our nurse leaders, who were also speakers along with me that evening. And again, the photo on the right, that even though it looks like a picture perfect photo, it is not a stock photo. That is a real photo of some of the clinical staff that was participating that evening. And they were incredible contributors to the event that evening because they can speak about topics that are very natural to them, that, for example, orals, PBMs, that many of the cancer patients or survivors are hearing about for the first time. So it's been a really incredible year for CPAN, and it feels great to be back and active again. And we never stopped being active. We just had a little bit of dormancy due to COVID, just like the rest of the world. Next slide, please. We also did a chapter launch at a hospital for the first time, and this was a very unique and very rare event, and that happened because Jill Reese was a chapter leader with us at a community oncology practice for many years and wanted to bring some of the knowledge and value and education to the staff and patients at their hospital setting, and we have a lot of compatibility with organizational goals, so we made that happen this year as well. Thank you, Jill. Next slide, please. Again, we keep patients educated through live events, which I mentioned all the very big, impressive national events that our advocates have done, but we also do virtual events throughout the year. The Advocacy Chats is one of them. We've been doing them since 2020, and I'm very proud to always have the most incredible guests who are all nationally recognized, whether they're working on the clinical front, the policy front, disease specific. It's been a really incredible way for our audience to gain knowledge from the top-notch experts. And again, this is just a snapshot. You can see that we're talking about everything from cancer policy to health equity to nutrition to most recently how to make decisions on health enrollment during health insurance during open enrollment. So again, for all of you who have participated, thank you. And just a reminder that all of these advocacy chats and the slides are available on our YouTube page, and we encourage you to share them with anyone who you know professionally or personally. Next slide, please. And our advocates on Capitol Hill. This is probably the event that our advocates get the most excited about. And again, we've been taking advocates to the Hill for over 12 years, specifically with CPAN and even earlier with COA. And these are again, not stock photos. Armando Lastra is the nurse and survivor I just mentioned to you from New York. He's on the left. The group on the right is our amazing Texas advocate, advocate leaders, 2 nurse leaders in there, Lance Ortega, Jennifer Cesanos, Tommy Ramey, incredible long-term advocates for CPAN. Advocates on the bottom left from Arizona and from Colorado. And on the right, pay close attention to the person standing next to the flag. She's one of our longtime CPAN advocacy leaders. She's also a nurse. She works with me, and she does a phenomenal job. And now it is my pleasure to introduce you to Chelsea Klock, our RN CPAN chapter leader from Hematology Oncology of Central New York. Chelsea?
Thank you, Rose. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about CPAN and just all the things that we're doing with our local CPAN chapter. If you can go to the next slide, please. So yeah, this is some information about our chapter. We launched in 2016, so we've been moving and doing things for a while now. We've done, I wasn't here in 2016, I started a few years after, but from the beginning, we've had a lot of practice support from doctors and administration and nurses and everything. So that's been really great. We participated in the conferences. We were able to take patients to a couple of conferences. Rose did talk about Hill Day. We've been to a few Hill Days now, and we have been able to take patients, and it's always just a great opportunity to bring patients directly with their stories directly to the lawmakers to talk about topics so they can hear it straight from the patients. We also have been part of the virtual events during COVID when things had to go virtual. We just kept moving forward and participated in the virtual events. And we have done a couple of workshops to help train the CPAN leaders so that, we're able to keep moving forward with our chapters. A big event that everyone absolutely loves is the Sit in My Chair event. We have probably done at least 15 of these events on the national level, as well as, or like the federal level, as well as the state level. We love to invite people to the practice. They get an opportunity to see what we do, see how we take care of patients, to just get that experience of being like a patient and getting that firsthand experience. I've always had excellent feedback from anyone who's participated in that event. We also partake in the Survivors Day when we have that in person. That's a great opportunity to talk about CPAN and engage more patients to join. I always find that it's better to have current CPAN advocates talk to future potential CPAN advocates. That's always much better. If you can go to the next slide, please. So yeah, these are some things that we did today or this year, not everything that we've done, but Rose talked about educational events. I'll talk a little bit further about that, but we did participate in the biosimilars educational topic. I did participate in the Faces of Community Oncology. That was a great opportunity to celebrate our 20-year COA anniversary, just to talk again about the value of CPAN, how important it is, how amazing it is to watch patients be a part of it. And then there was also a science day, an opportunity to, I'll talk more about it, but to meet with other advocacy organizations. Next slide, please. So this is our biosimilars educational event. It was really great. Who better to talk about biosimilars than the pharmacist? So Jonas, our Chief Strategy Officer, and Nick, our pharmacy director of pharmacy, were able to come, and they were able to talk a little bit more in depth about what are biosimilars, why do we need to know about them, what do they do, what, just all that information that patients would like to know. The patients were able to ask questions. It was just a great opportunity. We had pizza. They were able to see each other again, especially, with COVID, we didn't have in-person events, so they really missed that opportunity to interact with each other. So it was great to just get everybody back together, a chance to see each other, a chance to learn new topics, and a chance to just be together at the practice level. Next slide, please. And as I was talking about earlier, I was able to go to the GenMab Science Day. It was a great opportunity to see other advocacy organizations and to see what GenMab is doing and how they are wanting to engage other advocacy organizations. I think it really highlighted for me an important distinction with CPAN is that we're at the practice level. I think a lot of the struggles that other organizations were having, we don't have because we are right there. We're seeing patients. We're able to engage patients, staff, doctors in real time. We're able to bring things to them and able to share the struggles and everything. So I think it's a great benefit that we're able to be at the practice level and able to have those conversations, and there's no gap between us and the practice. So next slide. Okay.
Thank you, Chelsea. And it's a great job, Chelsea. And as Chelsea said, this is a snapshot. Chelsea is one of the leaders, just like Lisa, who you're going to meet in just a few minutes, who does seize the opportunities when presented. We got a question in the chat about how many chapters we have. We've launched 33 chapters, and some chapters are much more active than others. And a lot of that, there could be various reasons for that, but having a very motivated leader and having support from the senior staff is very important. And generally, in order to start a CPAN chapter, I'm working directly with the executives at the Cancer Center. So we do have that for the most part. Again, a little dormancy during post-COVID. But Chelsea, thank you for making my job easier and working as a liaison and for seizing all the opportunities that are presented to you. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Lisa Poiry, another incredible leader who's been with me as one of our chapter leaders for quite a long time from Fort Wayne Medical Oncology in Indiana. Lisa?
Thank you, Rose. Thank you, Chelsea, too. It's great to be here. We had launched our chapter in 2018. And since then, there's been several things that we have actually participated in between the COA National Conference. We were on the speaker panel, a few of the sessions talking about a lot of our challenges. We've also done the Hill Day. We have participated in a lot of the virtual advocacy summits. Unfortunately, COVID changed a lot of our delivery. We couldn't do anything in-house, in person. It really kind of changed the flavor of how we could deliver our messages. But we've also been involved in the Payer Summit Exchange, or Exchange Summit. That's been one of our biggest drivers, is trying to educate local companies and their HR departments, their CEOs, and also educate other payers about the struggles of being a community oncology practice and trying to work through how we can get cancer patients the best care possible, low cost, high quality. Also, as far as other events we've done, we did the sit in my chair, like Chelsea did. We've done it for federal representatives and senators. We've also extended it to some local. We've not had as much response that way, but it is great when you can actually open your door and have somebody walk through the steps that a cancer patient takes. You really develop a lot of empathy through that, and that was the main goal. During COVID, we did do a lot of Facebook Live events, only because it was easier to reach our population, reach our patients, to educate. Then in 2018, we did a Biden Community Summit. That was pretty impactful. Unfortunately, that kind of whole momentum got stalled again by COVID, and we couldn't do any in-person events. Next slide, please.
Lisa, I want to lean in for a second. If we can go back to the slide.
Yeah.
Lisa, is covering a lot right now, but something that I want to draw attention to was way before we had a formal employer initiative through COA. Lisa and Dr. Agrawal were doing CPAN advocacy events at the practice with employers. So there's been a lot that anybody who knows me knows that I'm always talking about more visibility for CPAN, and that's because I want to shine the light on the people that are doing the work and have been doing the work. So Lisa, a huge shout out to you on that as well. The Biden Cancer Summit, for those of you who've been in the oncology space for a long time, this was a huge global initiative, and Lisa single-handedly got incredible media coverage that was not paid for. This was getting guest shots on TV, a lot of incredible work for a very impressive global event. So thank you, Lisa. And again, I want to share that with you because CPAN has always been doing a ton of work, and we're just trying to draw your attention to it, as always. Good job, Lisa.
Thanks. Next slide. So we have hosted several events, from prior authorization to value of community oncology, which I think is probably my favorite, because it really tries to explain some differences in how you can obtain care. And I don't think patients are always aware of that you have choice. And that's one of the biggest drivers there. But yeah, step therapy, the employer advocacy events, we're lucky. And that kind of going back on what Rose said, that we have Dr. Agrawal, who's been a great advocate standing up for in Indiana in our practice. So the state of Indiana does have an employers forum that we've been able to participate, which kind of launched a lot of that engagement for us. The sit in my chair, yes, we've had we've had it every year. We have different levels of engagement. And yes, we did have Senator Todd Young actually come into the practice and sit and get to walk through the steps of a patient and have some conversation time with our providers, which was essential to them having an understanding of where your resources are, because it's not only about educating the senator, but it's also opening the door for future communications and to be a resource for them. Next slide, please. Our chapter, what we've done is I've tried to bring in some of our other leaders. And so on our biosimilars, I did have our pharmacy director, Jennifer Lilly, join me in trying to educate on this. We did carry that over into the office and educated staff. We've kind of started the health equity education that way as well, trying to keep it going. We have been engaged in several media advocacy spotlights and publications, trying to just get the word out, trying to empower all of our patients with knowledge, also empower my staff with knowledge, because even though I may not have as much contact with patients as they do, they need to be educated on what is going on, especially like 340B hot topic that we keep talking about. Next slide, please. This is just a picture of our educational event that we did earlier this year. And this is our biosimilar talk. And we delivered it in kind of a neutral place, trying to see if I could get more traction and advertisement. But we ended up, like I said, taking it to the staff as well. That's what you see in the right-hand picture. But it's just trying to get the staff to understand what we are talking about, what resources are available, and then how we can influence sometimes policy on these things. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Lisa. That was incredible. A really nice snapshot. Again, I'm going to have a more in-depth report for you in January. For our past CPAN year in reviews, you can go to the CPAN website and you'll find that it's a slightly unconventional year in review and that it's not a lot of boring statistics. It's interesting. You're going to see people like Lisa and Chelsea, lots of pictures of us being in various locations around the country. So it's very interesting, and I know the new one will be interesting as well. Again, this slide starts with a thank you. Thank you for participating. Thank you to all of our CPAN chapter advocacy leaders, to all the physicians who have stepped up. And also, since this is the end of the year report, I want to thank my executive assistant, Tracy Banks, who supports me in many ways behind the scenes. Advocacy comes in many, many ways, and her form of advocacy is supporting me. So thank you, Tracy, and thank you all. We're going to kick off our new year with the COA Crystal Ball. We're going to have our executive director, Ted Ocon, and our managing director, Nick Ferreros, doing the crystal ball thing and saying what to expect in 2024. So I look forward to interacting with all of you and seeing you in person somewhere across the country in 2024. Have a wonderful holiday season. Thank you for joining us today.